Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to have a guest with us. She needs no introduction. I actually met her at the Good Soul Forum. It was just 2 weeks ago, TD Jakes, Oprah. I met Dr. Carla Cooke. I fell in love with her. She talked about alignment. She talked about, being agile in this market that's so uncertain. She has an amazing book that's out called Whole Again. Not sure if you can see that. She has a master class coming up on the 28th, and we're excited to speak about so many things. But what I love most about her is her givingness, her willingness, truth, transparency, and just empowering so many people across the globe and just being a powerful yet quiet storm, as so people call it. But please welcome Dr. Carla Cooke. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, Kat. I thank you so much for the invitation to come and just to chat a little bit. And I'm excited about the listening audience and any questions and how they chime in and just ready, all in for this conversation.
Well, I want to start off first. Thank you for representing for the ladies up there. You spoke very, very eloquently about being agile in this market. And can you talk about what that means? So many people out here are scared. They have dreams and visions that they're trying to do right now, and for whatever reason, we won't talk too much about the book. They got to go get the book. But in this place of uncertainty, brokenness, trauma, just to touch on a couple of things. So how do people stay agile, in so much uncertainty? And, we just saw what happened on Saturday. So yes.
Yeah, so as you asked that question, I think one of the things that comes to mind for me is like, how do we define agile so we're just all on the same page? Sometimes we use language and we think about it in a lot of different ways. But when we talk about really staying agile in this market where there's so much volatility, it is about how do we adapt and how do we thrive. And I talked about the fact, it's not just how do we adapt and how do we thrive, because we can go in many directions, but how do we do that without losing ourself, without losing our core value, without losing our joy, without losing our passion? How do we not transform into someone we almost don't recognize, that's not even aligned with ourselves? And so when we talk about agility and really being able to have that adaptability, and really how we have that sustainability, right? And also the stability. I think the other thing we really want to look at is our thinking patterns and our emotional relationship with emotions and with ourselves. And so it's really the cognitive and the emotional flexibility. How do we have that flexibility? And so when you think about the cognitive piece, it really is that strategic thinking, the ability to have perspective, the ability to have judgment. And then on the other end, with the emotions, how do you really maintain that emotional regulation? So I talked about it in that way, and I talked about really when we are agile, when we have the agility, we're able to shift from being in control. And control is all about ability, right? As opposed to curiosity, which is more about agility. That's more about the flexibility. That's more about the adaptability. And, it is just a human tendency to want to be in control. It's hard to be in uncertainty. It's, trying to have a lot of volatility, having a lot of volatility and so much unpredictability. And so the human tendency, even, our body, our nervous system, our mind, our emotion, all of that wants to like, oh, let me hold on, let me have so much control. And of course, it's not that we don't want to be smart. And we, like I said before, we don't want to be strategic and we don't want to be on top of things. I mean, of course, we want that. At the same time, we don't want to have this rigidness, this holding on for dear life, without the curiosity and without that flexibility.
I want to talk about. Well, let me get into some of your achievements real quick. So, how did that happen? You were honored as the 2024 Voice of Inspiration Award by TD Jakes Enterprises. What did that moment to mean to you? So, let me give you your flowers a real quick, and like people say, put some respect on your name, because that's a huge, huge achievement. I definitely don't want to skate over.
Thank you.
We don't have just regular average guests. I mean, she's definitely a superstar, you guys. So I wanted to talk about, what did that mean to you, and how was that process?
So it was really a surprise for me. I have been active on the Good Soil app. So for those that are listening in, if they're not already plugged into Good Soil, there's a Good Soil app. There's a free um, part of the app, and then there's a paid part of the app. But I just got active on the app, and I just enjoy and called to, like, I'm called to, like, encouraging. I am an encourager. And so I would just post what came to mind, different just different posts to encourage people, some things from my own life, or very often if I had a quote, I would talk about it from the perspective of entrepreneurship, or just real life, or angles around what we need to look at related to this, or how do we um, take advantage of certain things. And like as a surprise was at the end of the year, the Good Soil app, they had a live presentation, and I happened to be on, thankfully. And they gave about five different awards. An award for someone who, like, brought in the most people. Um, and at the end they were like, and the award for Voice of Inspiration, Dr. Carla Cook. So it was a surprise. It was a blessing to me. It kind of reinforced again, and a lot of things have been reinforcing to me. And I think this is a point for those listening in as well, to be our authentic self, that we don't have to be anything or anyone other than who we are, and bring our full self into the spaces, and just do what we're called to do, what we're born to do. And that we always say in the scripture that said, like, our gifts will make room for us. And so that's how I became the voice of inspiration at Good Soil.
Wow, wow. So I want to shift to the book really fast. So as I'm opening up, I almost started tearing up. You
Mm,
have two famous people who wrote their recommendations and love. I know you guys probably can't see this book. Mother Ellen Arthur, and then especially your mom,
yeah.
91 years young, Miss Shirley Ann Cooke. Can you talk about the reasoning as to why you had them write their piece in your book to start us off?
So it's so interesting you point those two out, and I left them for the last, but last but not least, like, because I had about 12 people. And I had the president of New Brunswick Theological Seminary. I had a bishop in Church of God in Christ. I had pastors. I had best-selling authors. I had Dr. Delatorre. So I had all of these people review the book. And in addition to that, those two people were very special to me, and particularly my mom. My mom and I, like, walked this process through together. And I remember at a certain point, I was well into writing the book. And in the book, I do talk about some personal experiences. I do talk about our family. And her and I were just chatting, and I happened to mention that I was writing the book, and I talked to her in particular about the first chapter that talks about our family. And she was just so loving and just so supportive in terms of my transparency. And then, throughout the whole time, we just talked, and I'm so thankful. Like, at 91, my mom, her mind is still there. She was able to contribute. There were times where I had challenges, like, even the book cover was supposed to be something different, and her and I were like, because the book had to come out. I had my
Right.
deadlines, and we did that together, and just so many different things. So for me, it's a legacy. It's her legacy. It's like a living legacy. Like, I will always have this book. She'll always be a part of this book. And so it just blessed me, and it was so important for me to include her. And then her words were just so touching, so loving, um, and so articulate in a way of why someone would want to read the book. Like, so she really added value.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, for me, I got to read this twice. It reminds me of a good movie. You watch it the first time and you're like, I got to watch it again just so I can take notes. I can really thumb through the things. That's definitely what Whole Again is. And I want to start with the psychology of brokenness. The fact that it can happen at any stage of life, and just to have a somewhat of a transparent moment. Like, I literally just got married 1 year ago, coming up in August. Well, I guess it'll be almost a year.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
thank you.
Newlyweds. Yeah.
And I know, right? Still in our phase. We've always been in that phase. But
That's a blessing.
no, really just going through a lot, over these last 2 years with family things and getting married and the whole 9 yards. And literally, I had a family member who I was taking care of that they were on their deathbed, like just recently, and
Wow.
just having to deal with that. So, like you said, can you talk about for people to be prepared that, of course, brokenness can happen literally at any stage of life, and how can people kind of be prepared for that?
Wow, that's an interesting question. How to be prepared for it, and I just want to double click on something you said. Then I'm going to come back to that. Just in terms of, you said you're going to have to go back and read it again, and that is always the feedback I have. I was actually speaking with a pastor friend of mine today. She's reviewing the book. She has like a book club kind of a thing, and she's reviewing the book there. But she was even saying to me today, like, I am taking my time reading this book. She said, I don't think it's ever taken me this much time to read a book, because it is dense. There's a lot of concepts, there's a lot of frameworks. Excuse me, there's a lot to think about, that you start to process your own life and your own experience. Um, and so I think, in terms of being prepared for brokenness, there's a few things that I want to just say about this. Number one, I think, and this is also something she said, which is related to what I want to say about it. She said, I would never have picked up this book, because I never thought of myself as broken. And she says, I picked it up to support. But once I started to read the book, I started to understand what brokenness was. And I started to understand how that's a continuum to wholeness. And so she was able to begin to see herself through a new lens. And I always say this, that especially for those that are believers, um, that if you are broken, or if you have experienced periods of brokenness, you are in good company, because Jesus was broken. He was broken for us. And if we are really believers, and we know that we're going, follow his life, and what his real lived experience is our lived experience. It's just to know we're going to have periods of brokenness. And I can remember, even for me, before I wrote this book, like, I never would describe myself as broken, until I really entered a period where my life was undone and there were shattered pieces. And then I really began to look back, and I looked at, like, I really had lived a broken life. But I then understood that I lived a broken life so that I can live a broken life before God. So brokenness is not something that we need to be ashamed of, that we need to shy away from. I think it's important for us to look at all of our life and how life has shaped us, and recognize that we have had periods that broke us. And as you talked about, that it can happen at any period of life. I talk a lot in the book about, in our early life as children, and different circumstances that break us as children, because we don't have the background, we don't have the experience, we don't have you know um the mind, the ability to think as an adult. But I think in terms of being prepared, um, I think we understand life happens, and we don't want to get to the moment without any resources. So and it's not that we're necessarily preparing to be broken, but we're preparing to live our best life. We're preparing to be able to tap into higher levels of mental well being. And when we're living our life in that way, when brokenness happens, we will be better able to move through that period of life. So I am, a big proponent around healing, around staying connected to healing spaces, around being introspective and looking at ourselves, not to be perfect, but to be prepared, to be, to become and to go higher in who we are and be the best version of ourselves at any given time. And if we can do that, we will definitely be much better prepared when brokenness comes into our life.
Wow, I love that. We're getting a lot of hearts. I can see them.
Mhm.
I can see them on my side, right? But so I have, one of the questions the audience had asked was, how, and I'm going to reframe this. I got them early on. How does someone figure out? Someone's in their, I don't want to say their age, in their 50s. How do they figure out, where what they want to do with the rest of their lives? They had a great life, they've gotten these degrees, they've worked very well and things like that. So how do they get, and what places, well, we have this argument debate, but what places can folks get still where they can really figure out, okay,
Mm.
this is where I need to be in the next step of my life? Like, how do people deal with that?
Well, I mean, there's so much to that question you just asked. And so let me answer it a couple of ways. The first thing I thought about when you talked about how do we come to understand, what's next? How do we continue to evolve really in terms of the next chapter and what do I want to do? How do I reinvent myself? And I talked about this at the Good Soil Forum, that one of the things is not only is it about using intention, right? Making sure we carve out periods where we can sit, where we can be still, when we can, we are talking to the choir, preaching to the choir because they're here, right? Listening to podcasts and other information that can give us ideas and give us strategies. Um, I think about that, having the intention, but also being in tension, that we have to learn to be in the tension. And when there's uncertainty, when we don't know what's next, very often we're in fix it mode, let me figure it out mode. And again, it's not that you never, you don't want to be intentional, but at the same time, you don't want to be frantically avoiding the tension that's around us, because in the tension, there's information. In the tension, when you have to sit and almost sometimes struggle with where am I and how did I even get here? It's the information to be able to look at, maybe I was never where I was supposed to be to begin with. This was always something that I loved, but I never knew how to move through it or move in it. But as I'm in the tension and as I'm struggling with where I am, that's where I'm going to be able to really take advantage of the gems that are going to be able to guide me into what's next. Um, I look, I'm hearing Sarah Jakes Roberts. I wish I could say that better, uh, and I wish we could go deeper with it. But it's such a significant piece of information And I think people even can even think about, like, when I'm in stress, what do I look like? How do I show up? And am I still, or am I more frantic, or am I talking to him and her and everybody so they can give me the solutions? Do I have a posture of prayer? Am I okay in the weight? And so, um, and I think that goes to your point of stillness. How do we get into stillness, and how do we not rush the space? And I think it's different for everybody because everybody's life is different. Some people in their 50s, they have children, they have grandchildren. They may still be working, they have interests, they may be on leadership, um, and leadership on different organizations. And so they may have to be much more intentional around, let me open my calendar, let me take this day, let me look at the week, let me actually indicate times where I'm going to sit. I'm going to just be still. I'm going to pray. I'm going to go to a park. I'm going to walk. To be able to do that. For someone else, it may just be that they don't know how to be still. And so there's more so the struggle is allowing themselves to sit in the tension, right? Because stillness becomes the tension. And kind of that becomes the first step of being able to be in the stillness, is learning how to be there, tolerating that, building that up. So even if I start with 5 minutes, even if I start with, again, I'm going to walk. A lot of times I think about movement and stillness, not all the time, but definitely the walking, the being outdoors, the sitting next to water, if that's your thing, whatever it is, beginning to combine all of the different senses. What do I see? What do I touch? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I see? All of that engages all of us, not just our soul, but even our nervous system. And it really also begins to connect with both sides of our brain. Who talked about that? Somebody was talking about that at Good Soil. I don't remember. But, when we engage both sides of our brain, we're able to think more flexibly. We use the logic and the creativity. So that's a long answer. And that could be longer, but I'll stop
No,
there.
I appreciate, you definitely broke so many pieces to that question. No wonder you have several degrees.
Okay.
We appreciate it. So as we transition to the psychology of wholeness, can you talk about what that means, with breath, life, and soul?
So, again, here I go. So we talk and we use the term whole a lot. I'm whole. But in this book, and really as I sat with God and he began to minister to me and really speak to me around what wholeness was, and take all of my experience and studying and understanding of different models, and even my own experience of the healing process, to begin to build out what is wholeness. And so I looked at two types of wholeness: psychological wholeness and then spiritual wholeness, and they're different, but they are also related. And so psychological wholeness is really how we are repaired from our brokenness. No matter, how broken we may have been, or through our hurt, through our wounds, even through our challenges. It is that we go through this process of healing, and on the other side of healing, we become psychologically whole. And that means that we're no longer fragmented. So when I say that, what happens in life and what happens through our different challenges and experiences is that very often there becomes a fragmentation within the self. There becomes parts of us that, parts of us, maybe I'll give this example, that may still be in the process of undermining ourselves, or may still believe I'm not good enough. While there's parts of us that are, a boss, and we're fierce, and we're smiling, and we're showing up, and we're leading in church, or we're CEO, right? So we have these various parts of us that are not aligned, and they're not in alignment, and they're not synchronized, and they're not cohesive, and they're not whole. And through the healing process, it is truly coming to a place where there is this integration. So what that really means is that wholeness is on a continuum. So it may be that parts of me start to integrate, but there's still areas where I sit in a place that still needs to be addressed. So I may be, I'm moving towards wholeness. And this is why I talk a lot about the journey to wholeness. Um, so we're on a journey in this process. So that's really what psychological wholeness is, and there's lots of ways to get there. And I talk about, as you know, I have a motto: sound soul care, because this is a book that's grounded in faith. um, and so that's the process that I talk about.
Wow. Leanne Santiago, thanks for watching. I'm seeing some names pop up.
Hey, Leanne.
um, so yes, talking about alignment, we both got on orange. I wasn't going to say that. If I say, let me point that out. Talking about alignment, let's look at our outfits.
That's right. Let me point that out.
So I want to ask, what made you, as we start to wrap up the interview, I know people want to keep you, but Dr. Cooke is busy. She's definitely going to come back again, and we'll let you guys know. But talk about the masterclass that you're having on the 28th that people should register for, and what can they look forward to?
Okay, so I really want to encourage people to tap in to this. It's the top 6 psychological blocks standing between you and your next level success. And this comes out of a space where I work, in entrepreneurship, with entrepreneurs, with visionaries, people walking in purpose, to really look at how do they take care of the business of themselves so that they can be more successful in business and life. And how do we really address the internal systems of who we are in order to have that external outer success? So often we're looking for, all right, how do I scale? Let me get into this marketing. Let me do this branding. Let me learn sales. And all of that is valid, and all of that is important. But in addition to that, like, we are our greatest enterprise. If we are broken, if there are areas within us that are unaddressed, that becomes reflected in our business. I always say our businesses are only as healthy as we are. And so the masterclass is for individuals that really value mental wellness, that really understand that as I become higher version of myself, as I continue to go inward and look at myself and, address and tweak and modify some things, that I'm going to scale, because I'm going to be getting out of my own way. And so the masterclass is this coming Saturday. There is a registration link, Faithful Entrepreneur, faith, and then full, FULL. So like you're full of faith, entrepreneur.com.
Wow. As we wrap up, I got another question I got to ask. Someone just asked, do you believe in the law of attraction?
So there's nothing new under the sun. And so I think, definitely there's principles to the universe. God, the earth is the fullness thereof. God created the earth and everything in it, and he made no mistakes, and he's amazing and fabulous. And so there's definitely aspects, even biblically, that, one may describe it as a law of attraction. So, for instance, I think about the scripture, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so, very often in the law of attraction, someone will talk about, you know, I can think things into existence. Well, look, God already talked to us about our thinking and our patterns. And so, whatever you want to call it is, what you would call it. But for me, I'm biblically grounded, psychologically sound, and so I go back to that, and I think of it that way, in that respect. And so hopefully that answers the question, and it connects to
Well,
the
I want
important.
to ask one more burning question as I said, wrap up again.
Yeah, I'm
So
here
many
for
people, Dr. Cooke, they want to write books. For whatever reason, they don't. It's fear. Like you
it.
talked about, it's the uncertainty. Um, some of that could be trauma, right?
Right.
Exposing that and sharing that with the world. What what would you say to them, and what made you decide to put out your book, despite all the things that we may not know about that it took to put this wonderful book together? Can you talk about that a little bit? I just felt like that was on my heart to ask. I'm sure people
Yeah.
out there, they want to do an amazing book like yours, and they're scared,
Thank
or
you.
what did that look like?
Every question is a big question. So I have to answer this in several ways. I think, um, for some people, okay, now I'm going to answer it backwards. I'm going to first talk about my book, the process, why I put it out, and then I'm going to go backwards. So, this is actually my second book I have, and then this book has a workbook, as well. So, my first book was On Being Well Workbook: Foundations of Positive Emotional Health. And I put that book out because that was a time where I was really being pushed outside of the four walls of my office. And, publicly, I was, burdened, and I'm going to say it was a call to begin to speak publicly about, mental wellness and the importance of it, and just give information. And I thought about, to whom much is given, much will be required. And so that was why I did the first book. I was burdened. I was burdened to help people. And I think, for some people, if there is that burden, that can be something that will push you. I will say, with this book, I wasn't going to write this book. I had a whole nother book I was going to write. I was going in a different direction, and then God spoke to me, and He said I was doing a good thing, but not a God thing. And then He brought back this book to my remembrance, and I had to surrender to the process. I didn't know what I was going to write. I know it was the Holy Spirit that helped me pen this book. Um, and so, again, this book came out of an urgency, it came out of a call, it came out of a command of God. And I already know, look, had I not done it, that would have been a whole problem. Because God said so. So I had to surrender. So I think it's one, what is the motivation for wanting to write a book? Like, is it that everybody else has written a book? Is it like, I know I have something to say, I know I have something to share, I know it's going to help people? Is it I'm trying to process my trauma through a book, which I believe is problematic? Um, so, what is my motivation? And, um, as a person of faith, am I called to this, right? And then, when it's not happening, to begin to look at what is getting in the way. And is this now an opportunity for me to address some part of me that is not allowing me to show up? Is it fear? Is it imposter syndrome? Is it right? There's something that is holding me back: procrastination, perfectionism, and it's showing up in the book. But the reality is if it's showing up in that book, it's showing up in other areas of life. So I would make the recommendation to begin to look at that, to begin to address that in different ways. It could be therapy. I'm a proponent of, go to therapy. Look, I've done lots of therapy in my life. I'm proud to say I've sat on both sides of the couch. I could not be who I am if I had not. So it may be to do therapy. It may be to read whole again, get all of these systems and get yourself thinking, and then you're probably going to end up in therapy anyway, if it is really something, right, that is getting in the way. But use it as an opportunity to reflect and to get better. You, you, that look, I'm not showing up for myself. I'm in my own way, and not just in this book. And I want change. I want to transform. I want impact. And the only way to do that is to go inward and to address the things that make me stuck.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Well, as we know, wholeness is not a destination, it's a journey. That is so profound and so true. And people want to know, what do we have coming up besides the master class that people can expect from you, Dr. Cooke?
Oh my goodness! So I have this master class, and I have what I'm launching. It's the Business of You Incubator. And so the Business of You Incubator is really an opportunity for faith-driven entrepreneurs again, to be nurtured, to be restored, to be ignited through various coaching opportunities. One of those will be a 6-week immersive virtual masterclass series where myself and I have other faculty that will be teaching, and we're going to be having fireside chats and lives and just a lot of opportunity again to continue in the journey to wholeness, no matter where a person is. Even if someone feels like, yeah, I'm there, I'm good, I'm on top of everything, that look, we're still journeying. There's still more, there's still higher, you're still being called higher, there's still more demands, you still can be stretched, there still can be more impact. So with the Business of You Incubator, look, you have this is hot off the press because I haven't even talked about
Okay.
this publicly. So I'm excited. I'm excited about it. And if anyone is interested and you can't get to the masterclass, just schedule like a discovery call with me, and I can talk to you about the opportunity to enroll.
Awesome. I know they're going to be calling and going to your website after this one for today. But I want to say thank you again, Dr. Cooke. Just an amazing person. I'm going to share this quick little story with you guys. This should show you how in a line she is. And just her heart and soul. So I literally purchased the book on the spot just from watching her. The voice of reason. She's soft spoken but very powerful. She takes her time so eloquently. Me, I speak very, very fast. I'm trying to get better, Dr. Cooke. But just her. I remember buying the book from you, and it just spoke to me. Normally, how people try to sell their books. I never felt that way about you from day one. You hear speakers and push my product. I never got those vibes. Again, I feel like I fell in love with her when I first met her. And even me, I'm like, I paid for the book. Dr. Cooke. Did you get it? Did you see it? Like, did you? And she forgot all about it. That's the type of person that I am. But like I said, so many people stayed after and spoke to her. I just want to share my experience with you guys. I mean, a lot of alignment and connection with the room. I probably at least 20 people stayed to talk with her, share the experience, and she took her time. She didn't rush you out. She didn't say, "Oh, I got to go to the next room." She really took her time. So when she's talking about these master classes and the courses that she has that's coming up, she really means it. I can see it's more than just, of course, monetary, but it's a spiritual thing. It's a wholeness thing, like she spoke about. But I could really feel that, and like I said, just seeing that, and two of the gentlemen that I actually met, Dr. Cooke, from being at Good Soul Forum, they're interested in your course as well because they know we're doing the interview. But just so many connections were made. But I just had to say that to people that you think you're getting great vibes here. Just imagine in those immersive calls the type of value that you're going to get. So I just wanted to be another
Thank
advocate
you.
for that.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And I'm at a place in life and a stage in life where I've had, a lot of lived experience. I want to be able to give it. I want to be able to share it. And I understand that everybody has a very specific, important purpose and call. And my interest is seeing people like be functioning optimally to be able to just move powerfully in what they are called to do. That their voice, their touch will be felt and known in the earth. So that's where I am. I'm so um I guess just touched, just with your words. And I really do feel like you picked up my spirit. That honestly is my spirit. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thanks again, Dr. Cooke. We look forward to having you again, and excited to see you do amazing and great things. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Till next time.